Hey everybody, this is Ben from T3 bringing you another top 8 game from the regional in Northern California. With me today I have John Delisandri,
Hi.
who also played in this tournament, and as well, he placed top 8 in NorCal, SoCal, and Colorado, as well as placing top 8 at Nationals.
Yeah, but no first places. Always a bridesmaid, never a bride, or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's something
Yeah,
like
it was a lot
that.
of fun.
And in commenting, or for this game here, we have Wes on the right side playing Replicating Perfection, and Joe on the left side playing Max.
I actually played against both these decks at this tournament, so I've seen both of these in person. So I should know what they're trying to do here, if I remember.
Hopefully, it was a long time ago, but Wes starting off here with pretty standard RP opening. I'm sure that's most likely like a pad campaign or a mental health clinic.
Maybe
Start
a
getting
business
the
show.
economy
Yeah.
engine, and looks like can't see what Joe has there. Mimic, Imp, Knifed.
He's got some good cards, yeah. And his whole deck is full of good cards, actually, as Max, I would bet.
Yeah, I think he was actually playing Dan's version of Max at the time. This is when Chrome City was released. So just a lot of good cards,
Yeah.
multiple copies, nothing too
Money
fancy.
and
Just one
breakers, that's what you need.
money and breakers. That's how you win, especially against this RP matchup, and you need that efficiency to go as far as you can.
Right. Well, this is where Knife does great, is against, the Eli here.
Oh yeah. So if he knifes that Eli next turn, that's going to be huge
He
play.
just
I doubt RP is going to have another one this
Right, he
early.
can just keep servers open. He'd probably rather it be on R&D actually, but yeah, just breakers and money in his deck, and maybe one or two little tricks if I remember correctly. But overall, just a strong deck, and he was a strong pilot of it, which is what you require. I think with that deck, there's not a lot of room for error, so
Oh no, it's critical. Need
yeah,
to be able to levy at the right time,
exactly.
or knifed in this
Yeah,
case,
he was gonna knife
which
that
is
Eli right away. Just keep things open.
which is going to be pretty big. I'm actually kind of surprised here. Let's see if he runs in again. Oh, guess not. I would think with the Eli over HQ there that Noah's kind of or Wes is signaling here that he has more in hand than just that Jackson.
Yeah, unfortunately, he was too poor to trash the Jackson. But what he wants to do is he just wants to keep servers open. This is going to keep him from having any ice to build a remote with if he's making him have to use it, reinforcing HQ. And it would have been nice to have that data sucker down before he went knifing things, but
Yeah, I think he might have just drawn that, but that hit's going to come in handy again, I'm sure. That Mimic is keeping him safe from a lot of punishment right now, too. I'm sure Wes's Sarugis, and I don't think he plays Kamainus at this point, but
yeah, that's the thing actually is that Wes and Noah put this RP deck together, I think the night before this tournament. So they had just both took basically the same list with them. And I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, I'm pretty sure they went uh, more along with the code gates and less with the and then the Cortex lock splash here you see actually
oh, yeah.
doing some work. Luckily, he's got some programs down, so he's not going to be dead. But I think they went more code gate heavy for this one and kind of went away from the Kamainus and the Surugis.
Yeah, Parasite Recursion was pretty big here. I remember seeing a lot of Kate, and Kate with the clone chips and Clot definitely was there with some strength just to prevent some of that NEH nonsense.
Right, with Parasite everywhere, it's harder for Tsurugi and Kamainu to really stick around and tax. And the other thing is, I don't know if they were expecting Stealth Andy or not, but she also can walk through those. So the real taxing with Kamainu and Tsurugi days of RP, might not be around anymore.
No, but this did bring in Chrome City with its net ready eyes, so I would rather rely on a two-card combo in cases like that. But Cortex Lock is a great choice. That's pretty much replaced Neural Katana for early punishment, as far as everything I've seen anyway. And it's pretty much just been a board state game so far. Both of the players are just gaining money. RP is
Right.
fortifying its position, getting some taxes set up.
Yeah, Wes wants to establish some drip econ if he can, and before he builds his remote and tries to push his Niseis through. And Joe, as Max, is really trying to just obviously keep him off that plan and try to hopefully get a couple of early agendas out of the centrals so he doesn't have to play the remote game for the win later. And basically, depending on who can execute that plan better is probably who's going to win the match.
Yeah, and it's so scary out of RP. You really need to be able to lock down these centrals, and unfortunately for Joe, I see the corroder in his hand, but nothing, no Yogg or anything for his code gates yet.
Yeah, really, what he wants is to get some drip econ established. A mental health to stay. A Sundew behind some ice is ideal, and build up a little drip econ while he uses Jackson to fix his hand. Keep it clear of agendas until his board is a little more set up with ice, and then start scoring out. Behind a Caprice remote if he can.
Yeah, but that early mental health clinic uh, did cost Joe quite a bit of money early game.
Hmm.
I'm sure right now he'd rather be using that to fortify himself a little bit more, or at least prepare his board state with I see a grimoire and things like that. Uh, but it gives West a significant money
It's a
advantage
good
early
tempo swing,
game.
but I still think trashing it is the right idea. You want to keep him off any drippy con if you can, and make him rely on his celebrity gifts and his hedge funds. And this, if he's playing a Dan list, this max deck is going to have a lot of money, and he's going to have a levy to be able to put back in the liberateds and the gambles and stuff later. And he's got Kadi out too for long-term econ, so he's actually, as far as econ goes, probably in an okay spot.
Oh, he's in a great spot now. I think that Katie was huge for him. He had only seen that hedge fund or the sure gamble earlier in the game, and the even without liberated, the Kadi can keep him going
Right,
now.
that'll keep him in the game. And he he's got some good ice destruction tools too, which will help him. I think you see a Crypsis and a David, so he's got lots of different tools to deal with whatever kind of remotes RP's going to put together. You can expect he'll probably have some beefy ice like a Cezanne or something to score behind, which David is great for. And I love the one of Crypsis because kind of as a whatever you um, you know at the time need to deal with, even if it's really expensive or kind of a pain in the butt. It's worth it
Yeah,
to
it's
get you in if that's what you need to do, right? Like if that's the
oh
game.
definitely. It's a great oh shit button to have.
It saved. We played in the first round, and spoiler, he beat me obviously to get this far, and that Crypsis was what won him the game. So I did not really expect that, and it was well played of him to use that to basically get him in where he needed to get in. So he's got his breaker suite coming down here now. He just needs a code gate breaker, which is probably Yogg. Crypsis is a backup, and then he might have a Zoo too if he's playing Dan's list or something like it.
Yeah, and well, the data sucker, pretty much a Lotus field is probably his biggest concern here.
Lotus is going to be
So
expensive for pretty much everything in his deck, and you have to think RP has two or three of them, and
oh,
probably
definitely.
Tollbooth too in the list. I want to say Wes's list probably has two of them. I don't remember. They were talking to me about, like I said, they just put it together the night before, and I want to say it was fairly Koge heavy. If we can get some here, we can see what he's got. Oh,
Oh, there you go.
there is. It looks like that is a Sarugi there, isn't it? So,
That
um,
is a couple Jacksons and a Sundew as well. So that remote's probably, or you could just stick the Sundew behind the Sarugi in his hand and keep the ice that's face down hidden. That's probably a super strong play too. I'm sure the Sarugi would be nicer off on R&D. Okay, so he's just dropping the Sundew behind the ice already on the table. So it's probably something smaller then. I would say it could even be like another Enigma or
Enigma would be good. Yeah, another Eli.
another
Eli's
Eli.
good on the remote.
Oh, super good for RP. And that Imp could be good, but depending on what the ice is, of course. And this is not what you want to see. Everything that Wes has on the table right now is super, super taxing.
Right, and cheap
And
to build and taxing to get through multiple times. So that plays into his game of cheap setup, but being able to res all his pieces.
and Katie's not going to get the money quick either. So if he wants to keep trying to run through, oh, the Cortex lock I guess isn't expensive.
Well, right now it
It's
doesn't do
nothing.
anything, so he's fine. And that's the downside to Cortex Lock is it can get invalidated by just dropping your rig out. So if he doesn't
Sure.
have any program trashing or anything keeping that relevant. Oh, there's the toll booth. So
Oh,
he's using that Sundew in what he probably wants his scoring server to be ultimately, which, like you said, putting it behind the Sarugi would have been maybe better for that. But the Sarugi is vulnerable to Parasite, and it's also expensive to res. So he'd probably rather have that on
put it over
a
a
central
central.
or something. Yeah.
And Jack's saying, so Wes is just going to fix his hand here, probably trying to get rid of the NAPD, see some
That's
more ice.
exactly his game plan. Yeah, is get some drip going, use Jackson to fix his hand, build his board state, and then score. That's what he wants to do. And he's playing that longer RP game. So Kadi is great to have against that
Oh,
for
yeah.
Joe. plus especially since, like you said, he's milled most of the rest of his econ. I've seen his liberateds go and things like that. So
Well, the only problem with Tollbooth here is that Joe does have that David, so that Sundew is probably going to go really fast. I think that's still worth it. And David's kind of just been a fixer of anarchs since it came out.
yeah, and that's why I like Tollbooth on the centrals here against Anarch because, on the remote, the David's going to get him through it the few times he needs to play the side game. Whereas on the remote, on the central, it's always going to cost him to bounce. If it's the outside, it's going to cost him money, or it's going to tax him like crazy if he's trying to run with a medium or something. So, and then, yeah, there's a Yogg for his code get bigger. So I would imagine that his only other way to really deal with Tollbooth permanently is probably Zoo, which is real expensive. And same thing for Lotus, which we haven't seen, but you have to assume is going to
Or that
show up.
Crypsis, but
And then the one of Crypsis,
for,
obviously. And he hasn't played any clone chips or anything yet, so he doesn't actually have access to those outside of maybe deja vuing it back, which is pretty
that's expensive.
expensive to do.
That's prohibitively
Until
expensive.
you really need to do it, he doesn't want to do that. He'd rather probably go through his deck and then levy and draw through it again.
Try and see it, yeah. I guess he could try and parasite it even. Pretty close. If Joe drops the Grimoire, then could potentially parasite it as early as next turn.
Yeah, he might rather parasite the Enigma, though, just to keep Central open, so he can keep building sucker tokens. And also just keep pressure on West to not have ice for building a scoring remote, right? Like he's not going to be able to score out behind just one toll booth probably. And so if he can kill that Enigma or something, then that Tsurugi has to go down on HQ to shore it up instead of being able to go out in front of that toll booth. But RP is going to have a lot of ice in the deck probably. So
Yep.
it's destroying it all is not really going to be possible,
It's
even with the parasites and the knives and those things played once and going through the deck again. As long as he can just keep one, pressure point open, though, that's really all he needs to do. Is he just needs to keep pressure on somewhere.
yeah, and the Yogg could go a long way to that too here. He just walk through the Enigma and force West to overwrite it without having to worry about blowing
Exactly. If Yogg wasn't milled, then that'd be a better line of play. But since it's not coming out right
it
now,
up.
you also have to wonder is this he obviously overwrote the Cortex lock. Did he overwrite it with the Tsurugi, or did he have another piece of ice that we missed seeing?
Well, Tsurugi over R&D would be pretty good. Locks it down a little bit more, and if he really wants to get through it with Mimic, it's still going to cost 4 or 6 credits total for that server.
Yeah.
6 credits for one access, at least until Joe gets the medium out. That's worthwhile, I'd say. Although the Imp makes it a little bit more treacherous if you want to, but it's still 6 credits for an access, which is just not worth it.
Oh no. Especially without any multi-access pressure at all. But
Yeah,
Joe's got pretty good economy going here now. He's got his Liberated came out. He had a cast. Caddy's still going, and he basically just needs to find that code gate breaker, and he can get in and get rid of that Sundew.
well, did Joe have a David in his hand, or is that?
I can't see
is
his
that
hand.
just-
Remember, you have the high quality stream. I'm working on a kind of low quality version here,
Oh,
so
okay.
I can't see cards in hand. I can only kind of tell what's out on the board.
Gotcha.
You'll
Yeah,
have to tell me.
I'm pretty sure Joe does have a Parasite and a David and an I've Had Worse, is what I can make out in his hand. So he definitely can pressure the remote right now. And I think, I saw a legworker earlier, Joe hasn't played it yet, I don't think. So he's just hanging on to that pressure and just waiting for something to open up here.
Yeah, and
Uh,
he's playing the, I guess, snipe the remote game. But the thing is, I think against RP, you really need to get into those centrals early game and try to score a couple points, because if you let them get set up and start pushing out agendas, it's going to be really hard to win the game. So this lack of central accesses early on, while he's moneying up and building, is not really a good sign for Joe here, I feel, because if you don't snipe a couple agendas early against RP, you really have an uphill battle closing the game out later. Even though the density gets better in the centrals, all the agendas defend themselves so well. NAPD and Future Perfect are just hard to steal. So you really want you really want to get in early and take a Nise if you can, or an NAPD or something, because once they start doing this stuff where they set their remote up and they start pushing agendas out, it's an uphill battle.
Right, but it definitely is with that Nisei, and I think that might be what Joe's trying to do by drawing out that Nisei, because from Wes's angle, Wes is in a great spot. There's no way for Joe to get through the code gate break or to get through the toll
Hmm.
booth, and whatever ice that is in front is probably going to be super taxing, if not some hard end the run.
Yeah.
So I think Wes here is just trying to pump out a Nisei as
I
quickly as
think he's scoring the
possible,
first one he
but
saw, and that's the right thing, I think, because even if he has an answer in hand, it's still a lot of clicks to get that answer out and get in. He'd like to have a Caprice, obviously, to make this even more sure thing, but depending on what that ice is in front of the toll booth, it's, you know, all his
it's
clicks to,
tough.
to try to get in, and,
Well, if Joe prods the archives first, without dropping anything, see what if West res is, which
you
I'm not
have
sure
to
if he
assume it's
would.
probably a crick on the archives, and that would let him put, well, he Jackson back in an Ash, so there might not be an upgrade to put in anymore. But that's why if I were him, I would have left the Ash in the heap. So maybe that's not a crick then. If he didn't keep a good upgrade to install with crick in the archives, it might be a different piece of ice. But
Crick is still pretty significant. You can fake the Crick just because it's such a strong
right,
card, and
having to play
especially
around
when
it.
Joe doesn't have a way to break it. All
Ah,
right,
but
so
here's his play. He's going to same old thing of Vamp with that Parasite play on the ending we talked about to open up a Central. And because he's got the money advantage, he can do this, but I don't know how this gets him through the toll booth, unless he's just going to try to buy himself a turn, which
24 credits is a lot to buy yourself a turn.
exactly. I mean, at this point, resetting both their credit pools with two mental health clinics out, he did overwrite the Sundew, so that's good.
And,
But
and Joe does have the imp, so he could imp away the mental health clinics as well,
yeah, he could.
or at least one of the
He could
mental
just try
health
to reset
clinics.
the credit war here. Um, so this is a play at least that buys him a little bit of time. But now he's tagged, and Cotty's at risk of being. Did he drop the tag?
No, he has the tag on
Oof.
his ID,
I
but
think you just murder Cotty here, and money.
call it a
Yeah,
day.
because what's he gonna without any money? What's he? Well, I guess he has a liberated still with 4 on it, so that might get him an answer to the toll booth.
So Joe has an answer for 8, and if you're Wes at this point in the deck, or this point in the game, you have to be expecting at least a Deja Vu, if not a David in his hand,
Hmm.
since Joe is so low
Yeah.
there. So Wes is probably just
Well, he's gonna wipe virus counters because of that imp more than anything, I think, and then the data sucker token too. I think he's worried about some kind of like drop parasite on toll booth, run HQ a few times, and he'd be able to imp things out of HQ and then also murder that toll booth and get in. So wiping there is actually a pretty good call.
you were right with that zoo, right on
There
top.
you go. So that is his code gate suite is a zoo and a Yogg, and then the one Crypsis is basically his only ways through toll booth unless he can kill it with a parasite or something. So toll booth, great piece of ice obviously here, and it's probably gonna do a lot of work.
Even after all this time, still those core set cards making a huge difference in decks. Oh, I do see that legwork in archive, so I guess he might have played. Joe must have played that at some
He
point.
might have 2 of them.
Oh, we could have 2. Well, what we got a couple. I've seen a couple clone chips. There's a Levy, that's 3. A Lucky Find, Zoo. So
That's the thing
considering
about playing Max. I always feel like all my good cards ended up in the archives, and that's just because the whole deck is good cards. But it always seems like the ones I want are the ones that are there, and statistically, it's just like you hadn't drawn them or whatever. But it's just disheartening to see them not
oh,
in
I
my
have 2
hand.
credits.
It's psychologically anyway. That's why I'm not a
Oh, it
good Max
totally
player. I
is.
think I don't have the.
It's hard to play because you try and like modify your game plan the entire time based on the cards that you see, and then you like get the cards as you said that you don't want, like 2 credits, and you mill your day job. Like, well, that sucks, but now you got to figure out a different way to go about it.
Yeah, I really think he needs to lose this tag from the Vamp because he needs that Cotty, and he also really needs a way to deal with the toll booth, which I think is what he's looking in his archives here for. But
Yeah,
opening up
Joe.
HQ was pretty strong for him. He's able to have data suckers central to bounce off of, and just clearing the tag is the right
Okay.
call. It keeps the pressure on Wes here. He wants to score the agenda, but he also needs to reinforce his HQ.
Joe pretty much gave West that agenda there too. Let both mental health clinics stay. You know, he didn't have the money,
Or the
but
clicks, yeah.
or the clicks.
It is a
So yep.
Nisei, so that's what he wants to see. A scored Nisei just puts so much pressure on the runner now.
Oh,
It's always great
actually,
when you can score the first.
I think that might. I think that's actually an
It
NAPD.
looks like
If
an APD to me, but you put Nisei up on the banner, so I was going off that.
yep, that was my mistake. I think that's an NAPD.
All right, let's clear that.
Oh,
That's
get
not
that.
nearly as bad as look, quicksand. I think that was a had just come out and they just Wes and
They wanted to see
Noah
how it
dropped it in
was.
there. I
Yeah.
think they both said afterward it was terrible and they would not put it in. So
Because it
make
just
of that what you will.
yeah, the problem was that it would just not get run unless you had multi-access, and just that's not really worthwhile.
Yeah.
Too
So
easy.
Joe is clearing out those mental health clinics, which is pretty good. Resetting that economy with Cotty out, he's going to be able to money back up quicker than Wes, and he still has
Well,
an open
seeing
HQ, which is great.
yeah, he has to love seeing that NAPD. That was probably the best thing that he could have asked for here.
That it wasn't a
Uh,
Nisei for sure, because one scored Nisei, like I said, here's the Queen's Gambit. This is a great card out of
Out of
Max.
Anarchs.
Yeah, out of Anarchs, because so many corps have, assets and upgrades that it's almost going to go off in every game you play.
Especially at the
In
time of
this
this
meta,
tournament.
yeah, in this meta for sure. So that's getting
Uh,
him moneyed up real quick, and he's trying to figure out where he wants to put pressure on. I don't know that HQ has too many agendas in it right now, probably,
no
especially
way.
considering that he didn't install that Jackson to try to maybe he had two Jacksons. That could also be a Jackson down there as well. Oh no, it's pad, and it's a pad with three advancements on it.
And John, I think just so you're aware, I don't think Joe has any way to get his levy back. This is it. It looks like there's another Katie, and I've had
No deja
worse.
vu in hand, huh?
No deja
Oh,
vu,
that
nothing.
seems like a terrible misplay. So he used his only same old thing to hit
Vamp.
that vamp, and it didn't even get him the agenda. So that is I would say, a colossal mistake. I noticed Joe actually in our game. He did the same thing where he used his only same old thing left to legwork instead of to levy. And so he's pretty reckless about not saving the tools for the levy, which it worked okay in our game, but here I think is really going to be bad because he has no answer for the toll booth. So
And against RP, are gearing up for
right.
the, you need to gear up for the long game
Yeah.
instead of gearing
So
up for that short
he's got
game.
the one parasite in hand, and that's not going to close it out. So if Wes can realize what's going on here and capitalize on it, I think he's in a very very strong position.
Very strong, and I think if that's a Nisei in the remote, even if Joe does have a David, and I'm now starting to second guess that he does, even if Joe has a David with that Nisei down there, it's a toss up whether Joe even has enough accesses to get the toll booth out
Yeah.
or to get through the toll booth enough.
Right. So clearly the same old vamp. He wanted to land that while he saw the window, especially since it looked like he was putting an agenda out. But clearly that's going to really cost him in the long game here because he didn't even get the agenda from that play, and he basically sacrificed all his recursion to go through the whole deck again, which he really needs to be doing because he's going to have a bunch of money and access to his missing breaker suite that he needs here. So plus his knife comes back, his parasites are back, all those things. So it seems like that was a big mistake.
Yeah, I think it's so risky when you're Max. You need to have a backup plan. You need to have at least the same old thing or deja vu in hand. And
Yeah.
with Darren, we were talking about this in the last video. It's tricky with Max because you need those cards, in my opinion. Anyway, like once you lose that, you go through your deck so fast. Especially Joe's been drawing pretty aggressively, or at least aggressively enough to get through his deck before any points were scored. Really.
Yeah, that's the thing is it's clear he didn't want West to be able to score a Nisei, and he kind of went all out playing around that. But in the end, it was only an
He
NAPD.
didn't even make a
and
move.
he wasn't anywhere close to game points. So I think being overly aggressive with that vamp play was pretty unnecessary. It's still early game, even against RP, which the games go long. So it's still early game, even though he's at the end of his deck. He needs to play for that, the last 2 points, not the first 2 points.
Yeah, I think, and additionally, I think for that vamp play, Joe spent all of his money. He didn't have anything left on liberated accounts or anything like that either. So Joe didn't really have a great way to recover after the vamp either.
I think he had 4 left, and he had 4 credits after he did it. He was 4 credits up on him. If you count 2 to shake the tag, then he's only down to 2 credits. But he did have 4 left um,
He had four
on the
left on
liberated.
liberated, but then with Wes's 2 mental health clinics and the toll booth,
No, I played Joe, and he did the same thing in our game where he used his last same old thing to, I think, hit a legwork instead of a levy. That was his last chance for levying. So
it worked out.
it worked
In
out in
that
our
game,
game
though.
because I was playing NEH. I was playing a fast deck, so giving up the levy to hit a legwork totally makes sense if if it's on game point. But here against RP with no agendas scored, you cannot give up your last chance to levy. And maybe he was hoping to draw into another deja vu or something, but that's just too risky when you only have a few draws left as max too.
And without your full breaker suite, and like
Hmm.
he really wasn't prepared for even the game state as it was with the toll booth and the mental health clinics. He didn't have enough money to go through and
Yeah.
trash
But
everything.
we've been playing
Uh,
Netrunner for like 12 hours at this point, right? So,
that is very true.
that's the thing is it's really hard to think all these thoughts through after. Oh, he gets
There's the
that open
Nisei.
HQ is turned out to be great here. So, killing that.
Yeah, after
Kill.
12 hours
Yeah.
in Netrunner, it's a lot easier to judge for us.
Sure.
Fresh
Sure.
fresh night of sleep
Hmm.
and not sitting at a table for 12 hours.
Yeah. Well, he's going through HQ here, which is his best play. I think he wants to be able to maybe burn down that toll booth uh, with the last parasite and get it off the board at least. But there's probably not many left in hand. That Nisei is probably the only one he had because it was
Well, that
empty
remote-
earlier, and he obviously is trying to set up
Ye-
set up a window to score it out here. I'm surprised he didn't ice the HQ with that Tsurugi last turn.
And in the remote, I'm sure there's probably just Caprice. There must be just Caprice and Ash there. And the money game, Wes isn't really going to win the money game right now, especially with a fully or 9 credits on Katie. So he needs to protect his toll booth. That's basically his win. But if Joe can drop the parasite on that toll booth and blow it up, I'm not sure if Wes has enough money to res the ice and the Nisei
Well,
and keep him
that'll
out.
do it. He's showing a future perfect here. I guess there's another one in hand, and now he's moneyed up, and now he can.
Try and force out
Yeah.
the thing. I think. Do you think it's worth it for Wes to purge here and clear out those sucker tokens?
By now Wes has got to realize he's not levying. He probably can't levy at this point. You have to think he would have
Definitely.
done that with these huge windows he had to do it in. So you don't really know what his 4 cards are. I guess you could ask to see his heap. Wes probably should here actually ask to see his heap and go through it and figure out what's left. Usually at this point you could get a pretty good idea of what he's going to have, and if he counts 2 parasites in the heap, he could probably assume there's a third one in hand. So he probably could figure out that that's his only play here, but like 12
Well, at
hours,
least-
it's hard to think these things through. So he's just going to
Oh.
try to score it out. So here's where we have to wonder what that outside ice of the booth is. If it's like a Lotus Field or something, that's one secure agenda.
Oh, that's game really. I don't think there's any way for Joe to get through a Lotus Field at this point in the game.
Nope, he's just got to start hitting R&D and trying to snipe him off the top. So he's going to do his parasite play, and he's going to hope that it's not a code gate on the outside.
Well, did he even run? He didn't run a central
He
yet.
will here.
He
He'll
should have
res
ran
the-
the central.
He'll run the HQ to see if he can get a res. He'll probably expect it to be Tsurugi or something. It's the quicksand.
Quicksand.
That's an interesting choice. I would have
I
actually.
think West
I
doesn't
would
have an option.
He had a crick. I would have put the crick down there.
Oh
Didn't
yeah,
he have a
the
crick?
Crick's way
That's a
better.
great spot for it because
There's,
that would
yeah,
bring
there's
back
no way-
Jackson. That would do all kinds of things for him. But I don't know. He didn't think of
Oh
that.
yeah, the Tsurugi's one.
He just wanted something cheap to res, I guess. But crick's cheap to res. Crick would have been perfect. So
that 12 hours of Netrunner
He's
that you were talking about.
he's dude. I missed what the ice was. He's not even gonna bother to res it. So he wants money to play his side games and still be able to score. Is probably so. It must not be a code gate that'll keep him out.
Nope. But if he can guess right, see this is the issue with the side game here. I would assume West bids too. That seems to be common sense, or that would make sense to me based on the state
I tend
where
to
everything
favor
sits.
I favor two bids as the runner for sure. Um,
Yeah,
but I don't know if you just even go just random here because there's enough credit pool they both have that it doesn't really matter too much. He needs two to res the Ash, which isn't going to save the agenda. So, yep, you're right, bid two.
well, that two credit play, like that's what you see when they really want to keep the agenda, at least, especially since that's the first side game that we've seen all game.
Yeah, pretty amazing
It's
actually. Uh,
yeah, like if it's something that's coming down to this, I don't know, maybe that's just me as a player. I tend to favor
I
two
I
or
bid two a
zero,
lot. Yeah, it's it's usually the right call. Uh,
especially at least when you're still trying to like test the waters and you think it's actually an agenda.
yeah,
But with
I'm wondering why didn't
if that
Joe
was
get two
Joe's,
runs on that? Did he have to get money from Kadi before he made his play? I wasn't paying
uh,
enough attention. He should have.
y-
Uh, well, I guess he had to get money and then play the parasite. So, you think it might have been instead of waiting for West to put, considering we're nitpicking Joe's play here, but considering how he messed up the code gate situation, um, it might have behooved him to just try to go bust that remote up before he waited for him to put an agenda in because waiting until he makes the agenda play, you are going to give up the points if you can't get in. Whereas if he can just dismantle that Caprice Ash server, he still has a good shot of picking out anything out of HQ, which is his other open target. So it might have made more sense to try to just go ahead and blow the toll booth up early, clear the server out to keep him forced to hold agendas in hand and try to snipe
I
him out of
think
there.
I think you're absolutely right there, especially after West Celebrity Gift and you saw the future
Yeah, I
perfect,
think next turn I
and
go blow that remote up.
yeah, that remote has still had two
Hmm.
cards face down in it. You have to assume that's going to be a Caprice
Yeah,
and an
he
Ash.
doesn't have the clicks to play it the turn he needs to get the agenda, and now he's on. Wes is on game point, and he still has that server built up. So, uh, things are just not really going Joe's way here.
No, and it's always such a grind with RP. Oh, not Excalibur. Okay, that's
So
why
that's why he
West
didn't
didn't
run it because
res
it
it.
didn't matter. It was last click. Smart. You'd like to see the Excalibur on a central sometimes, but you can't really control which central they're going to bounce off. So really, you either want it on R&D to keep them off big medium digs in a turn, or on the remote here is kind of nice because it lets him. It means he can't go in and clear this Caprice out like we just talked about doing. So Wes anticipated what I was talking about and played around it pretty well. Um,
Yep. And I think right here, Wes is going to try and pump out an agenda as soon as he gets it. Just has way more money than Joe does, and the Caprice, and he only gets one run, and there's the Ash there.
yep.
So it's almost impossible for Joe to get in that server in one turn right now.
Right. Artie's been locked down pretty much the whole game by that pup and then the Surugi, which is just so taxing. So Joe hasn't been able to put any pressure on R&D, unfortunately, and he kept HQ open pretty good most of the game, which was nice. But it's hard to snipe agendas out of HQ
Oh,
against
there it is.
RP because they usually can either Jackson him away or the remote's just sitting there waiting for the next agenda if they're in a position, which has been the case this game. So
And here's the install credit advance. So
yeah.
this is the game right here, and Joe doesn't have an easy way to get
He's
into
got
that
one
remote.
one side game that he can play, but he has to also have money to play the side game and beat the Ash
Beat the
Trace,
trace.
um, which you know
I don't know
I
if he
don't think he
does.
does.
Because you have to. Because Wes is just gonna bid two.
Well, he has to
again,
have enough
if,
to
if
score
it's
the
an
agenda
issue.
out. So if he wants to, I might bid one as Wes here, because as Joe, I definitely would bid two. That's why side games are tough. See, they're both thinking this is for the game here. It always
Oh,
comes
they
down to
know
a
it.
side game. West is probably doing a little bit of math, counting up how much he would need to be able to pump Ash.
Hmm.
He can pump it to like a Trace 6, or actually a Trace 7, I think, and still have enough to score out. So, bid and 2 is, yeah.
2. And that was the last run. So assuming this is an agenda, and not a future perfect.
I think you saw what started off as a really strong early game for Joe kind of fell apart when he wasn't able to levy properly. By not levying, he basically consigned himself to playing half his deck.
And it was all before RP even started scoring out agendas.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a lot in the setup, and then he didn't have any more steam going into the mid to late game. So
Well done by West to grind it out there.
that's all the action we have. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thanks, Ben. It was fun.
Good. We'll have to have you on again sometime soon. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.